Good evening, viewers. I'm Leela Ramdeen, the Chair of the Catholic Commission for Social Justice. We're here on another occasion where on our Ask Why monthly program, we're going to be focusing on family values this evening. Very important program. And to assist me in discussing this theme, I've got to my right, as you know, Nadine Bushell, who is a member of CCSJ, and my co-moderator. Good evening, Nadine.
Good night.
And to her right, we've got Mikel Trestrail, who has been on our program before. Mikel is one of our parish link coordinators. And Mikel also works with the CTC community, with Kyle Dardane and that team, working with men. Mikel, good evening.
Good night, good night.
And to his right, we've got Pauline McCarthy-Phelps from Family Life Commission, also working with the Billings Association. Good evening, Pauline.
Good evening, Leela.
And to her right, we've got Keisha Ann Elaine. Keisha is a psychologist. Some of you may have read an article about her a couple of weeks ago in the Express News magazine. And Keisha is one of these young psychologists that we need more of. So welcome, Keisha. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to have a break with a little teaching about the whole issue of family values from a Catholic perspective. In 1881, St. John Paul II issued a document called The Family in the Modern World. And in it, he made some very profound statements. He said, the family is the primary and most vital foundation of society, the first school of social virtue. As the family goes, so goes the nation, and so goes the whole world in which we live. He made special plea to families. Become what you are, the domestic church and the heart of the world. Promoting family values and family life in our society is imperative if we are to build the common good and transform the world so that it will reflect gospel values. Today, marriage and family life are under threat, they're in crisis. So many of our families are breaking down. They are in crisis. At a time when so many so-called values strive to influence the hearts and minds of family members. We need to influence the hearts and minds of our families to reflect the kind of values that will help us to build a common good. But we need to understand the difference between values and virtues. Values, as we know, are subjective. They can change with time. You know, it's based on our personal choices. Hitler had values, but they're not the kind of values we want to instill in our families. Virtues are objective. They are qualities of moral goodness and excellence. And those objective moral virtues, what we need. Those are the virtues that will help us to build strong families in our nation, help inform our consciences. Families should embed virtues within their membership by giving people an opportunity. Members of the families must have opportunities to practice the values. How many of you allow that in your families, opportunities to practice? I believe of all the values, of all the virtues, the greatest one is love. And we know that. Our scriptures tell us in 1 Corinthians 13:13. There are three things that last: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. Love is what will help us to build, to rebuild a strong nation. The kind of self-giving love that's unconditional within our families. That's the kind of love we need to promote. In his document, The Family in the Modern World, St. John Paul II highlights the importance of family love. He says, the essence and the role of the family are in the final analysis specified by love. Hence, the family has as its mission to guard, reveal, and communicate love. In his letter to families, Pope Francis emphasized the fact that if there is no love in our journey as a family, then there is no joy. And authentic love comes to us from Jesus. Nurturing our love in our families will help us to deepen our faith, will help us to walk in Christ's footsteps, will help us to be living witnesses to Christ. So let us open our hearts and our minds to the love that Christ is giving us to flow in and through us and through our families. Let that love infuse our lives so that we can transform the world with gospel values and transform the lives of our own families, so that we can play our part in building the common good. I leave you the words of St. John Paul II. Family, believe in what you are. Believe in your vocation to be a luminous sign of God's love. So, we're hoping each month to give you a little Catholic teaching so that we can contextualize why we're discussing these issues and how important they are for us as Catholics. Now, I've said in that little clip that for me, the greatest of all the values is love. But let's, during this segment, talk about what love means for us in our families and how we can promote love. Nadine?
Actually, before we discuss the importance of love, I think it's important for us to understand why is the family important, and then within that context, then we could speak about the importance of love. What is the value that we see that the family has in the society? What role does the family play? I'd be interested to get the feedback of our presenters on that.
Miguel?
Well, it's interesting that Nadine chose to go down that road, because as I was thinking today about the show tonight, that yes, that love, I think, is the most important value in our family, but I think the way that society is right now, family itself has to be a value, and family itself has to be important to us, because I think in many ways we've lost sight of the importance of family itself as something to hold on to and something to maintain and something to be part of. You know, many people today, we read about it all the time, where families are hurting each other. The family is a place where most of the pain in our society is happening. And I think it's because we don't have the value for just that institution in itself, the family, because, you know, as the Pope said there, it's so goes a family, so goes a nation, and so goes a world. So that I think the first thing that we have to understand is the importance just of that idea of family. And I don't mean here the nuclear family, mother, father, and child, but family on the whole, all of the relationships that are involved in family, I think is the first thing that we need to look at and to reclaim in our society, and to find ways, creative ways, to promote the whole sense of family. And then I think we could talk about love in the context of families. You know.
Pauline?
Yes, and I agree. In our seminars that we have with Billings, we talk about family being the foundation of our society. And it's only due to what are happening in families that is what is happening in our society today. So basically, they are the foundation, they are the building blocks, and they are so important. So we stress that in our seminars, in the marriage prep groups. We tell them, it's like, you are the future of our society. You know, this is where our society begins, from you as a unit, husband and wife, and then bringing forth children into the world.
Right. Agreed with both. The reality is, the family is the first place that we learn about anything. When we first come into this world, we learn how to share, we learn how to relate with others, and of course, naturally, it will be our first place for us to recognize what love is. And depending on the relationship we have with those people, the first sets of people that we meet, it often dictates how we're going to turn out later on.
Yeah, but you know, what Nadine's point about the role of the family in society is important. The fact is that society doesn't seem to value the family. There is a 3-day symposium at the Hilton. For the first time in a long time, all Christian community denominations have come together, organized by Cleveland Thomas. It's called Prayers Plus, with people like, you know, the Chief Justice and top people, the Minister of National Security. They'll all come together to look at the issue of what is our solutions to crime? How can we as a Christian community help with crime reduction? And what is coming across clearly during this is the pain that families are feeling, the pain that those at the grassroots, the pastors and others working in their parishes are feeling because families are not valued. They're not valued because many of them live on the margins and the resources of the nation not filtering down to them. So yes, in terms of the role of the family, we will have lovely policies, lovely laws even. We have a children's authority, and yet we don't have a proper value of society because the resources are not there to lift people, as Martin Luther King said, to a higher, more noble place. And you as a psychologist must be seeing a lot of that in terms of the pain that families are going through.
On a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, and it's sad. A lot of these people aren't even aware of the services that are out there to help them. I think for a long time, our society has moved on autopilot, so to speak, where we make babies and you do what you have to. You take a default position in rearing your child and not realizing that certain morals have to be instilled, especially to deal with that world out there.
And also, a lot of us do not see the family. The family has a responsibility to produce productive citizens and citizens or persons who can make a difference in the world, make the world a better place, who can assist other persons. And I think if we understand that and we link that, how do you get productive citizens? That means these productive citizens must be persons who have compassion, and you learn the compassion in your family, and take some basic things in terms of they must be well fed, well clothed, and have a healthy mind in order to be productive citizens. And it is within the family that you get that. And when you link love in terms of our interaction, how a parent cares for a child, the attention and love they give at the different stages of the child's life, that is important. Also the interaction between parents, between siblings and the parents, and even the extended family. And those, I think, are some of the things, we're not, as persons and even as Christians, you're not seeing the links between those practical things and the whole value and the value of love.
I think I was just thinking that it's something that we really need to see. How can we create, even in the school systems and in all of the systems in our different religious circles and everything, that how can we prepare a generation to build a family, you know? More than just teaching all the needed other virtues and stuff, but to really prepare people for family life. I think it's needed at every level of society. You know, the school, the churches, everybody has to come together to say that, look, if we want a better nation, if we want a better society, we really need to have better families at the heart of it, you know.
That came across at the symposium today, that we need our schools to have parenting programs. Children are having children, and they don't know how to parent. So as well as parenting, the parenting program that Family Life runs, Common Sense Parenting. Sadly, it costs about, it's important viewers know this, it costs about $600 for the 6-week program. Republic Bank is paying $400 of that. In some parishes, I know the wealthier people say they'll meet the rest of the cost, $200. So people need to know that there are programs that's available. The Family Life Commission has been running this for a while. So please make use of it in your parishes. It's an excellent program, and we need to get these into schools as well. So that we hear about one school where 8 young girls are pregnant. You know, what kind of education is going on in our schools and in the wider community?
Well, we hope to deal with that in the Is Love Forever program, where we talk about chastity. It was mentioned in the video clip, the virtue of chastity. It's unfortunate that it's a word that, you know, a lot of people don't know about, or they scorn at it because they think, oh, chastity is, you know, for prudish people and that sort of thing. Where chastity is the basis of love. And with what we teach in the Is Love Forever program, we teach them the difference between love and lust, and how, you know, human beings are not, you know, to be used as John Paul II, St. John Paul II said. He said that human beings are to be loved. We're not objects to be used. And oftentimes, you know, it is in seeing a person as an object, that's where lust comes in, that's where pornography comes in, where all the negatives against love come in. And so we need to come against that and teach the difference between love and lust. Love can wait to give, but lust can't wait to get. We teach them about that. And these young people are amazed by this simple teaching that, you know, love is about waiting, and then it's about giving of yourself unselfishly, and the essence of love is generosity. And love isn't just a physical attraction, and it's not just a feeling, it's actually a decision.
The sad thing is that many of these youngsters have never experienced love. They really, you know, and again, you would see that in families, and there's a lot of hurting people at the symposium. The testimonies that people are given about their experiences in their family. You know, we sit in our cocoons, we don't realize how many hurting people there are out there. If you've not experienced love, it's hard then for you to pass on that when you have your own family. Keisha?
Yeah, I think one of the major problems that we have in these schools is that because there's a lack of love, or there are reasons why children are developing low self-esteem, they seek that love elsewhere. So it wouldn't, because there's no sense of love or sense of self, you find it very often that you would find a lot of young girls being coerced by boys and older men into doing things just for that attention, and that attention makes them feel loved. And so we boil back down to the importance of instilling these values, esteem and love and treasuring for oneself, starting back into the family, so that when we go out there, those negative influences don't affect our children.
No, sorry, Miguel.
I was just going to say, just building on what she's saying there, that I think even like in our churches with our like marriage preparation programs, I think there's room for us to do a lot more to help parents recognize the great responsibility that they're going to take on, and even those who have children already, even in other forums, you know, other spaces where we could really help them to see their responsibility for really forming the identity and the individuality and the intimacy for that child. You know, in our workshops at the John Paul II Center, we try to, you know, help parents to see how people on the whole, how parents contribute to really that identity formation of the child. Because really, as she's saying, you know, when that is missing there. So I think we really need to look at all the ways in which we are preparing people for marriage and family to be able to integrate these important things. Because I was at a workshop the other day, and somebody was just sharing about a mother who, she has her children, and she and the father are separated or whatever, but she collects, so he's been trying to be a good dad, paying his child support, but she sees that as like her salary that she collects every month, and it's spent on her and not on the children, you know. So she doesn't see the importance of her role in the life of her children. And even, you know, and I think so that's where we really need to help make a change and a dent out there, you know, in all of the ways in which we could help people to make that shift internally to really love in their families, as we say.
Because one of the things that a few years ago, the theme for World's Children's Day was, is your country a safe place for children to be nurtured? And we know it's not. Look at the poor 4-year-old going with her mother, minding their own business, and the straight bullet comes through, and she's still in critical condition, and it gets lodged near her windpipe, so they can't even operate yet. So we have to look at as well as, does society love children?
Yes.
You know, and our society, we're not showing that we have a framework within which our children can be nurtured safely. They can't even play on the street safely. But we want to break now for some quotations from our encyclicals, and many of them are from St. John Paul II. So we'll break and come back.
A society lacks solid foundations when on the one hand it asserts values such as the dignity of the person, justice and peace, but then on the other hand radically acts to the contrary by allowing or tolerating a variety of ways in which human life is devalued and violated, especially where it is weak or marginalized. Only respect for life can be the foundation and guarantee of the most precious and essential goods of society, such as democracy and peace. Parents must trustingly and courageously train their children in the essential values of human life. Christian parents have the specific responsibility of educating your children in prayer, introducing them to gradual discovery of the mystery of God and to personal dialogue with Him. The question of responsible fatherhood and motherhood is an integral part of the civilization of love. In the Church, everyone is called equally to perfect holiness.
Yes, our vocation as Catholics is to be holy, and we have a duty to lead others to live holy, virtuous lives. But families have to know what those values are. And as the earlier clip said, they have to have opportunities to practice those values. So we want to focus now on some of the other values that we feel we need to inculcate in our families and ways in which we can do so. Nadine?
One of the key other values you could look at is the whole issue of generosity and sharing and the role of the family in the society. As individuals, not looking at family, but as individuals, you have a responsibility to ourselves to, as you get older, to be able to take care of ourselves and also to identify those persons out there who are in need. And it's usually in a family that you will find that the spirit of generosity and care and concern for others is developed. If within your family you don't care for each other, it's hardly likely that you would care for other persons outside of your family. And also there are families that they care for themselves, for their family, and they don't care for other families. And if your family actually exhibits that kind of selfishness, not for an individual, but for the family unit, and not care about other persons like your extended family or your neighbors, you would also find that you don't get that sense of concern for the community, concern for national issues that will actually, in the long run, impact back on your family, or if not on your immediate family that you have now, but the generations to come. So I think generosity is a key one, the spirit of service and concern for other persons that is important to get in a family.
Real understanding of service. So often we hear people say, I'm here to serve, but there's no real understanding of what it means to serve, self-giving service. Michael?
I think another important one for me is the whole thing of commitment or fidelity. I think the family is a place where that is really taught and that is really shaped. And fidelity not just in the sense of husband and wife faithfulness, but I mean faithfulness to anything, a cause, a commitment, that even when things go wrong, that it does not change my position, that I'm committed to you, or I'm committed to this cause. And I was just thinking in my own family experience where every Sunday my extended family gathers for dinner. About over 20, 25 of us gather, well, when I can go, gather for dinner on a Sunday. And you know, even when we get angry, we get upset, you know, people might stop coming for a few weeks or whatever, but they will find themselves back there because they know that Sunday is a place, you know, Sunday at 7 or whatever, where they're supposed to be. And even though there may be, you know, problems or whatever, people make their way back. And I think it has taught me that whole thing of commitment in my life. Well, no matter what has happened in relationships or in my community life, that there is a need to always have that return and that stick it to itness, you know. And I think that's a central value that I think the family teaches and that we need to really focus on as well.
Well, I keep coming back to the Is Love Forever program that we host. And in that program, again, it's young people, teenagers, talking about love and relationships and sexuality. And trust often comes up. And young girls are often asking, how do I trust a man? How do I know he's not faking? How do I know this is real? You know, and trust is extremely important. And if this was in the family, meaning that, especially as I'm focusing on the young girls who tend to ask this question, if this is in a family where she can see her father being a person to emulate and, you know, a trustworthy man, then it will be a whole lot easier for these young women to know who to trust. Because the examples, the stories, they hear about it, all of the things that are happening in society, the abuse, sexual abuse, domestic violence, you know, and they're scared.
And so many of them don't have fathers around
Exactly.
to model any man against.
Just to add a little bit to what Nadine was saying, she mentioned generosity. I think it needs to extend even to compassion. I see generosity while being, a sign of caring. I see compassion being more than just, doing. It's more about feeling and empathizing. And I think that in the ability to be compassionate, we're able to understand how we affect others. We're able to understand that we can put ourselves in others' shoes and make more conscious decisions.
I'm just thinking again about the symposium. It's fresh in my mind. And one of the speakers, very powerful, and he said he would love just one day that we could call a good, honest day. He was talking about corruption in society. Now that's a key. Honesty is a key value that particularly in our society we need, in my view, to inculcate in our children. But of course we have to work against the lack of honesty in the rest of society, because it's not do as I say, not as I do kind of principle. So we have so much corruption. The families fighting against that. That's a challenge for us in families to instill honesty when there's so much dishonesty out there. But we mustn't give up. So honesty in little things. I know of a neighbor who sent a child to the shop to buy things, and he came and he gave only some of the change back. It's little things like that. And of course, she whipped him. She beat him up. And I was trying to tell her, just doing that and not telling him why you did it, and not trying to think, well, what can we learn from this situation, is not going to help. So parents need to know how to deal with situations like that. Child comes home, as another speaker said, with something he's stolen or bought from school, and nothing happens. Parents say nothing. So honesty is, to me, a key one that we need to instill in children. Yeah? Any other?
Yeah, I would like to say something, just to add to what you said. On the flip side of that, what parents don't realize sometimes, as you said, sometimes the child would have done something wrong and nothing is said at home. But then we have the cases where a child would have done something and would be afraid because of the repercussions of that. And so the tendency to want to be honest may not be there because they're thinking more of survival. So I think that parents need to have that open and honest communication with children where it's not about really about punishment, exactly, and more about rationalizing and showing why these things need to be the way they are. So that, once you instill that in your household, even if the broader world is corrupt, the child would learn to stand up in the face of hard negativity and still stand up for what is right and true and honest.
And just wanted to add, you said a word there, it's not really a value, but the whole issue of communication. And that is like an enabler in our family to ensure that the values are inculcated, and it's the actual communication is the mechanism or the means of dealing with and addressing a number of issues that take place within the family, like between the husband and wife. In terms of the communication, shows the care or lack of concern or lack of care for each other. The discipline of children is done through communication. The opportunities to show love is done through communication, both verbally and through our actions. And I think communication is a key tool of the family, because communication also is important in the workplace, when you go out and you interact in the church community. So I think that is something that is critically important.
And the challenge there is that many of our families don't have opportunities to communicate because everybody have their own little iPad or their game or doing something in the same room, perhaps, but not talking to each other. And so, I like those parishes that are saying to families, at least once a week even, just put it all away and sit and talk to each other. Modern technology is wonderful, but it could take over your life and prevent that communication, put a barrier between people.
But even, as you say, the looking at the modern family, the communication is one thing, but even the workplace, like some persons work in environments where, okay, it's a global village now. So if you're in a multinational company, sometimes you find at 5 a.m. you have to take a phone call.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of things inhibit now family life, because most people, like if you look at even children in terms of their extracurricular activity. When I was a child, it was extracurricular activity, yes. But the number of things I hear, like say my French children have to go to, I say, but you know, you're just running from activity to activity, and all of those things take away from family time sometimes, you know. So we also have to be careful. And the whole issue of the modern family, what is a family now? Because you see a number of the television shows, the media now, most shows include values that perhaps are not, like we're talking about Catholics now, include values that are not Catholic. Each show now has a gay person. You actually have to, in order to have high ratings, you must have a gay person on your show. You must deal with that issue. And those are some of the challenges that attack the family now. And that is something that I think the church has to look seriously at, how it can deal with that and protect the family. And because the Pope John Paul spoke about not doing anything to devalue human life. And a number of those things, some of the values that the media entertainment is supporting or promoting, actually devalues family. And it is a great challenge to parents who want to instill certain values, to, you know, discipline their children, even explain to their children what is correct and what is not, when they're faced every day with certain scenarios.
Yes. And quite often, a lot of busy parents just put their children in front of the TV to parent, and that becomes the parent, and all the wrong values. I was amazed. I sat in right here in Trinidad with my great nephews and great niece who came from England, and they were watching a cartoon. Normally, I wouldn't look at it, and I was amazed at the sexual innuendos in a cartoon for children. So you wonder, the people who are writing these things are having fun, putting forward really negative, not subliminal for us adults, but for these youngsters. So you have to be so careful.
Listen to what the young people are listening to on the radio even. You know, all of it has a lot of sexual innuendo, and this is why we have these kind of programs to help. Because, I mean, we have a highly sexualized society. Young people, as you know, there are about 2,000 plus teenage pregnancies we're having a year in Trinidad and Tobago. You know, it's indicative of a highly sexualized society, and it's because of, look at all the influences they have, the carnival, the this, the that, the parties that are, you know, showing, you know, if you don't wear this little bit, you know, you're not in, you know.
Yes, Mikael?
I just wanted to say though that I agree with all that is saying, but then we have to ask ourselves, especially as church, if we are living in a society that is so sexualized, how can we be a church that does not speak about sexuality?
Exactly.
You know, and we need to really look at ourselves and say, well, if that is where the society is, we have to be like Jesus. How are we going to take the gospel into that? How are we going to meet people where they really are? And as church, we have to look at ourselves and say, look, we have to be brave enough to break some of the taboos that we've inherited, and to really speak about the topics that need to be spoken about, you know. A few weeks ago, we did a sexuality workshop, and we presented what we know the church is teaching to be on human sexuality. And the young people were shocked. They're like, this is the first time we're hearing this in our life. And they were in their 20s, young adults, you know, and they said, this here is so life-changing, what you're sharing with us, but we have never heard this before in church, and we've been involved. And we need to meet people where they are, you know.
Yes. We're going to have a break, and then we'll come back. When we come back, remember that's the call-in segment, so you'll see the number. It will appear on your screen, and you can call in and participate in the discussion.
300,000 students, their families, and teachers filled St. Peter's Square to celebrate the Church for Schools Day, organized by Italian bishops as a way to support Catholic education. Pope Francis said that he loves school. In fact, he explained that this appreciation for education came from one of his own school teachers.
Io ho l'immagine del mio primo insegnante, quella donna, quella maestra che mi ha preso a 6 anni al primo livello della scuola. mai ho potuto dimenticarla. Lei mi ha fatto amare la scuola. E poi io sono andato a trovarla durante tutta la vita, fino al momento che è mancata, a 98 anni.
He said that school is a place of encounter where parents can meet professors and collaborate along with them. And that's why he explained family and school go hand in hand. He also referenced an African saying which he had everyone repeat.
Questo fa pensare a un proverbio africano tanto bello. Per educare un figlio ci vuole un villaggio. Diciamolo insieme. Per educare un figlio ci vuole un villaggio. Insieme. Per educare un figlio ci vuole un villaggio.
It's in school, he said, where one learns truth, good, and beauty. He also emphasized the three and most important languages learned in school.
Una strada che faccia crescere le tre lingue che una persona matura deve sapere parlare. La lingua della mente, la lingua del cuore e la lingua delle mani, ma armoniosamente.
And before saying goodbye, the Pope made a special request to students, parents, and school teachers.
E per favore, non lasciamoci rubare l'amore per la scuola.
You know, something he said there is something we all quite often repeat here in Trinidad, that it takes a village to raise a child. And somehow we're not doing that. We're not taking responsibility for reaching out to those. That has to be a community value. We talk about a communion of love. Our archdiocese has a mission statement saying that we're building a civilization of love. Well, if we are, we will be like the village raising a child, the whole village raising a child. So one of the things I want to remind people is, while we talk about family values, you know, as Gandhi said, for a hungry man, food is God. So we have to look at the challenges that family face and think about what our government and what we need to do to make sure that families can live decent lives. And I just want to quote Mariana Callahan had an excellent article in which she quoted Pope Francis, who said in The Joy of the Gospel, he said, "Today, in many places, we hear a call for greater security, but until exclusion and inequality in society is reversed, it will be impossible to eliminate violence. When a society is willing to leave a part of itself on the fringes, no political programs or resources spent on law enforcement or surveillance system can indefinitely guarantee tranquility. We will not reduce crime unless we address social exclusion, those on the margins, those who live in poverty." We have a call. Good evening, caller. Good evening, viewer.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Leela, are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Good. And good evening to your
Tanit?
guest.
Yes.
Okay, I am so happy that this is the topic this evening, family life, because at the moment I'm carrying 3 persons and 2 divorced, who are separated, and you know, we're discussing about what is wrong with our men. You know, as you said, this family is really under attack, you know? And so I said, is it mothers that spoil their sons? Is it mothers, you know, we have to look at how are they nurturing their sons, to have the sense of responsibility, you know? And the other thing you said about the children, some children have not experienced that, they don't know that. So how could they give it? Like Kyle, children are fed, children live where they live. And all, you know, the church is trying, I know the preparation classes, even there is beautiful teams of Our Lady, where from the minute you get married, you could join a group where you have different people who will marry for different lengths of years. So you get a little advice and you share together, trying to keep the family together. But you know, sometimes you put your hands up in the air, that what is happening to our family. So the discussions have been very healthy, and congratulations, and continue the good work as we try to help our family.
Thank you so much. You know, I was quoting Mariana Callahan's quote of Pope Francis, and what we're saying and what came out of the symposium is no amount of drones and helicopters and, you know, ships around our borders will help if we have people living on the margins, because those who don't have are living in close proximity to those who have a lot of money, and as they say, social exclusion is the shorthand term for what happens when people live in high crime environments with poor housing, low income, poor skills, bad health and family breakdown, unemployed. And society has a duty to reach out on the margins to help those families in those situations. We got another caller. Good evening, viewer.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Hi, good night. I want to find out what is the church stance on homosexuality?
The church, our commission has issued with Bishop Lianas a statement on this some time ago. The church itself has accepted that there will be a significant number of people in our world who will have same-sex orientation. And so even AEC bishops have issued a statement on this. Same-sex orientation in our catechism is not a sin. Where it becomes a sin is when the individual acts on that. And as Father Harvey has said in the past, we're all called to a high standard. You're talking about chastity. We're all called to a high standard to be chaste until you get married. And so people who have that same-sex orientation are called to the high standard to be chaste. There is that American group called Courage that we brought, Father Moses brought them to Trinidad to talk about this issue. So it's not easy. We all call to journey to holiness, but just to make the distinction, the church has always made that distinction between the orientation and the act itself. So we're called to love. Our catechism tells us we have to love every homosexual. We have to love all our brothers and sisters without exception. So, and the catechism tells us we must not discriminate against them and beat them up as they do in some areas, in some countries. We have to stand up for love for them. So we have to be clear about that. No discrimination, no beating them up. We're supposed to love them, but ask them to be chaste. That's all we can do. I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
Is there another caller? All right. So, yeah, so what we're saying is that to help families, really, they need to have a piece of the pie. You know, the Catholic Church believes that the economy must work for the people, that the resources of the land belongs to everybody, and it should be shared out to that everybody has sufficient to live, basic amenities. I see some people so happy they've had a big party for a pipe in a street, and they put big ribbons on the 25 years they were waiting for a pipe in a land that has so much money. So, you know, those are the things that will prevent families from inculcating the kind of values that they need, because they're struggling for food, as Gandhi said. The food becomes God. How can we develop their spirituality when they have hungry bellies? We've got another caller. Good evening, caller. Good evening.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
Are you hearing me, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I'm a first-time caller of the show.
Welcome.
Where, okay, on that show, team promote family values.
Yes.
Well, I agree what the caller is saying is that the Catholic Church doesn't teach about homosexuality and thing, you know, especially when couples, you know, who have never been married and thing, they were absolutely together. But I have a question for Annalyn Boswell. Is the church teaching the youth about safe-sex marriage and thing, or that's a sin?
Okay, thanks. I think I just answered that. The church, our catechism, we follow what our until the Pope or the church changes the catechism, we have, I think it's paragraph 2267 that outlines what the church's teaching is on homosexuality. And of course, in the discussion nowadays, children in confirmation classes, I'm sure, raising these issues with their confirmation class teachers who will tell them what the church teaches. And if you visit, just Google CCSJ Trinidad, you will see our statement, which Bishop Lianos and I issued some time ago, outlining quite clearly what the church teaches. And again, to say that the church teaches that marriage, if you talked about marriage, marriage is between a man and a woman. Marriage is the foundation for us, for family life. The church does not agree with same-sex marriage. Although we accept that people have that orientation, we ask them not to act on it. So marriage for us remains, and our bishop, our Archbishop Harris, has issued a statement on this whole issue of marriage. In fact, the AEC bishops just had their meeting in Jamaica, and they've issued another statement on marriage to confirm their current understanding as churchmen of where the church stands in terms of marriage and family life. So that's also available. I think we've uploaded it on our website as well. So again, we read in the church's task is to read the sign of the times, and that's what our bishops have done recently, and making it clear that in line with what the Vatican, the Pope is saying, the Holy See, that marriage is between man and woman, and that's where we stand. You know, and we have to be bold in today at the symposium. The Archbishop says we have to speak the truth to power with love, to those in authority and to everybody else with love. Morality is not subjective. Morality is objective. We believe in objective moral norms, and we have to speak that truth. That is God's truth, as far as we're concerned. Sorry, I don't want to dominate. So, but share what do you have to say. Sorry.
At one of our seminars on Islam Forever, one of the young men, I think in that particular school there was a lot of homophobia. We had to address them very carefully and say exactly what you just said, what the church's teaching and them being called to chastity. And I said, well, even on our website, our Islam Forever website, we have a video clip of Jason Everett stating he would love to see the first person who has same-sex orientation become a saint.
Yes.
And they said, what? A homosexual saint? Yes. I said, well, no, the person wouldn't be acting on it because certainly they would have lived their life of chastity. They would have had the same-sex orientation, but they would have, you know, become a saint because they lived a good life. Yes. They lived at life and surpassed that desire.
Yes.
You know?
Sorry, we got a caller. Good evening. Good evening, caller. Good evening. I can't. Can you? Hello, good evening. Sorry, we've lost it. Okay. Yes, so yes, we can have somebody with same-sex orientation becoming a saint. We all, our vocation is to be holy, all of us. Mikael, you wanted to come in?
Well, I mean, I just wanted to kind of build on what we've been saying. I guess that the whole thing of the need to really bring family, I think, to the center, and to, you know, bring the I was just thinking just now, like, even like business places, to challenge businesses, how are you as a business respecting family, not as in the family of the people who work for you, you know? What are you doing in your practices, in the way you treat with people? You know, Catholic social teaching even goes so far to say that we must recognize that you're hiring somebody from a family, and to recognize that family's condition, even when you're deciding about payment and stuff. And to really see how can we really radically bring family back to the center, and to the focus of in society where it needs to be.
Yes, workplace crashes, those are important strategies that some companies are using.
I would like to add to what she was saying. She made, well, a lot of calls are talking about homosexuality and the church's stance. I think what is really important to that because it's really a controversial issue and the church does have a stance on it, and it's one that practices tolerance and love for others, I think the topic of homophobia needs to be more the forefront, especially in Trinidad and Tobago where it's rampant, and in Caribbean. So I think that especially with our message of love, the fact that it's a controversial topic and a lot of people would tend to, especially because religiously speaking, it's frowned upon. The Catholic Church shows that level of compassion where even though there are different views across the globe, that the idea that, you know, everyone is one of God's children needs to be promoted a little more, and a more active stance needs to be taken against homophobia and any hatred.
And you know, we build on that by coming out and making statements. Recently, there was a prominent Trinidadian who implied in his statement that we have all this crime because of these homosexuals. And I made a statement, which in fact I was at a meeting at the British High Commission, and they were saying how good it was to see the Catholic Church come out in favor, speaking out in favor of homosexuals, saying it's a heavy burden to place on the the homosexual community, saying they're the cause of crime, and when we know it's not true. So we have to speak the truth in and out of season. Yes. So we've got a few more minutes, so let's wrap up the discussion about different values. Are there any other specific values you wish to raise before we go to our last break?
The last one I thought about, I think, was mercy and forgiveness. I think, you know, with just the growing pains and all the brokenness in families, it's difficult for families to forgive. And persons in families to forgive, and therefore it's a virtue that's not being passed on, because child mother, child father thing, and all of these different complications we have in families, that we need to really bring back that value of forgiveness and mercy and reconciliation in the families, and to see how can we better help families to be places of forgiveness and reconciliation. I think that's another big value that we need.
Forgiveness.
And one issue we didn't touch on at all, like in our discussion, we spoke about care for children, but the elderly are important parts of family, and you know, the elderly need special attention. And I think that is also a critical area that we as a society need to address, the care of the elderly, and like where families are not able to physically do the care for them, like the elderly persons, the senior citizens' homes, like in Trinidad, you know, they are very few and far between those of high quality, and that is something that to value the work that the elderly has done over the years to building the families and to protect their interests, I think is something that we also need to look at.
And the differently abled, we didn't have a chance to discuss the differently abled and how they're treated by society. I had to speak at the Autistic Society, and they're not giving me enough resources to help them with their children, because it's a continuum. You know, you could have a really autistic child, so different kind of problems families face. So the differently abled also, in terms of building family, how do we treat
Support
families
and
support them, yes, in need.
Include the excluded.
Yes.
And even within the family, actually family members dealing with their own persons who are differently abled, you actually need not only the assistance to the family as a whole, but even the family understanding how to love somebody who is differently abled, and the care that is required for them.
So we're going to wrap up and have your final comments. Keisha, I'll start with you.
Firstly, I'm very glad to be part of this panel, and I'd like to thank you for having me here. Just today, my mother was singing this hymn, and it's so apt. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And if we really reflect on the words of that, we'd realize, you know, how important it is. Let it start in each one of us. As God is our Father, brothers all are we. You know, let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Good words. Yes,
and
Pauline.
I would like parents to know that their families are the foundations of our society, and how they raise their families, as John Paul says, how our society will go. And so I hope that parents care deeply for the future of our nation and change today's society of indiscipline, highly sexualized children, and children who don't see the dignity of the human person. So that is my close.
Okay.
I think we just have to really accept that the family is under siege. You know, the whole idea of family, everything that family represents. Now, I don't only mean in the issue of marriage and so on, who gets married and who doesn't, but the whole concept of family is under siege. And if we look on a global level, you know, the church is trying to bring a focus to family. And this year is going to be the synod on the family and all these different things.
Yeah.
And I think that we here in Trinidad, we need to really critically look at ourselves and make some radical changes to save family life in Trinidad and Tobago. And I hope every viewer could ask yourself tonight, what can I do to save family life?
Thank you.
I would look at it from a practical standpoint. The family is what the unit that produces citizens and produces that is supposed to produce whole persons to make the world a better place. And we need to understand its role in that regard. It will create a safer world, a happier world, and a more developed world.
Thank you. Michael, can I ask you to end with prayer, please?
Sure. Blessed Trinity, we thank you that you are the first and model family that we know. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, we thank you for the example of love and communication that you demonstrate in your very nature. We pray, O God, that we as human beings will be able to model our own families after the family of the Blessed Trinity. We ask that you bless all those who strive to help families and support families, give them the grace and resources that they need to make family life alive here in our land and in our world. And all of this we ask through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
So, as you go about your business, remember what Pope Francis says, the family is a communion of love. And let's share, please find ways to share love within your family. Share love with your neighbors. God said love him and love our neighbor. So find ways to reach out to families that are in need. Really reach out, in your street even, just in your street. Who are the families that are in need? Take that love to them. Take the love of the Good Samaritan, the better Samaritan, as Michael says. We have to be better Samaritans and share the love around. So thank you once more for viewing, and may God bless all of us as we seek to strengthen family life and promote family values.